Welcome to Canada, the podcast that helps you prepare for your Canadian adventure with clarity and confidence. Hello, future newcomers, and welcome to your Canadian Prep Zone. You're listening to episode number 6, and it is recorded in May 2025. I am Emma Charland, your host and your international mobility coach. I'm here to help you prepare, plan, and thrive in your move to Canada. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Canadian banks. The financial industry is an important part of the Canadian economy. A lot of companies listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange are in the financial sector. There are a large number of retail banks, asset management companies, and insurance companies. Many of these names may not mean much to you. So the question is, how do you navigate? There are 3 main categories of banking structures in Canada: retail banks, credit unions, and online banks. Let's start with retail banks. Put simply, these are the banks you find on street corners. They distribute their products and services through a network of physical branches. They offer credit and investment services to individuals and businesses. With this type of institution, a customer can walk into a branch, call an agent, or use online services. One point to keep in mind, these banks are present in most parts of the country. The 6 largest retail banks in Canada are Royal Bank of Canada, or RBC, Toronto Dominion Bank, or TD, Bank of Montreal, or BMO, Scotiabank, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, or CIBC, and National Bank of Canada, or NBC. Now, let's talk about credit unions. Among the down-the-street banks, there are also credit unions. They are called Caisse Populaire in French. They operate in much the same way as retail banks, except that each customer, whether an individual or a professional, is a member or associate of the group. Originally, credit unions were non-profit organizations. This is no longer the case. One thing to keep in mind, credit unions are primarily local. Let me give you some examples. In Quebec, and to some extent in Ontario, you have the Caisse Populaire des Jardins. In Ontario, the big credit unions are Meridian, Alterna, and First Ontario. In British Columbia, you have Prospera Credit Union, Dan City, Coast Capital, and First West Credit Union. In Alberta, you have Service, Connect First, and Vision Credit Union. I'm not going to list all the names of the credit unions province by province, but what I want you to keep in mind is that they have a strong local presence. Therefore, if you travel all over the country and want to be able to go into a branch, a credit union is probably not the best choice to make. And now, a word from our sponsor. Hey, but there is none. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm the sponsor of the show right now. Today's episode is brought to you by my one-on-one coaching services. Thinking about immigrating to Canada but feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or pulled in too many directions? You're not alone, and you don't have to do it alone. I offer customized one-on-one support to help you move forward with clarity and confidence. From creating your departure strategy to finding a job, planning your budget, or securing housing, we will tackle it all, step by step in a clear and structured way. Book a coaching session with me today and let's turn your Canadian dream into a real plan. For more details, click the link in the show notes. Finally, we come to our third category of banks, fintech or online banks. Online banks are, not surprisingly, online. They have few, if any, physical branches. Everything is done over the internet or over the phone. Most of the time, you do not have a designated advisor. Their services are primarily aimed at individuals, although they are increasingly targeting the professional segment. By going online, these banks have reduced their operating costs. It means that they can offer attractive banking fees and attractive interest rates to their customers. Major players in the sector include Tangerine, a subsidiary of Scotia Group, EQ Bank, a subsidiary of Equitable Bank, and Simply Financials, a subsidiary of CIBC Group. But there are many more online banking options. In Canada, banking is highly regulated, both at the federal and provincial levels. It means that retail banks, credit unions, and online banks are subject to strict banking regulations. In Quebec, for example, the ruler is the Autorité des marchés financiers. In Ontario, it is the Financial Services Regulatory Authority of Ontario. Funds are also protected by third-party insurance organizations. The Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation, or CDIC, is mostly used by retail banks and online banks. Credit unions may also be insured by the CDIC, but more often they are insured by a provincial deposit insurance corporation. In my book, Costs of Moving to Canada, The Ultimate Guide, I tell you much more about good financial habits to put in place when you arrive in Canada. You can find it on Amazon in paperback and in many bookstores in digital format. Let me give you 3 takeaways from this episode. First takeaway, there are 3 main categories of banks in Canada: retail banks, credit unions, and online banks. As a newcomer, you should focus on retail banks and credit unions. You will have an easier time meeting an advisor who can help you. Second takeaway, not all banks have a nationwide presence. Retail banks tend to have a national presence, whereas credit unions tend to have a provincial presence. In other words, where you live and your lifestyle, with a lot or little travel around the country, are factors to consider when choosing your bank. Third takeaway, financial institutions are subject to strict regulations. In the event of a problem, deposit insurance, whether federal or provincial, will cover you up to a certain limit. You can find the notes for this episode in the Learn section of my website, bienvenueaucanada.ca. One word of caution, I am not a financial advisor, so take the info and advice here with a grain of salt. And that's it for today. Thank you for listening until the end. Thinking about immigrating to Canada but feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or pulled in too many directions? Book a coaching session with me today and let's turn your Canadian dream into a real plan. Link in the show notes.